Hi, this is Jeannie. Today I'm going to make a little fall arrangement, and I'm going to use a styrofoam pumpkin from Walmart as sort of well, not really a container. The first thing I'm going to do is break that stem off. You just rock it back and forth a little bit and it'll pull out pretty easy. And then I'm going to hot glue a piece of styrofoam onto the top of the pumpkin for the flowers. I have a battery powered glue gun, and I'll give you the link to that in the blog post. I really like it. It makes working with hot glue so much easier, and you don't have that cord pulling. So I'll just set that up and let that dry for a little bit, and then I'll come back and start adding some flowers. The audio in my craft room never comes out sounding good, so I'm doing a voiceover. So I know that's not the best way to do a tutorial, but sometimes you just have to do whatever sounds best. I was showing there, I like to use Gorilla glue sticks, and the flowers that I'm using for this tutorial, these are all just pieces of things I had left over in my closet. I didn't have many sunflowers, but that is a bittersweet pieces there. And I'll give you some links of some bittersweet that is available on Trendy Tree. And then this was just a plastic fall bush, and I just have pieces of that. I love using the leftover pieces for something like this. So I'm going to start out with my largest sunflower. And I'm trying to fix this arrangement where you could view it from all sides, but since I do have that one large sunflower, that's what I'll put the bow, close to it, and that'll be kind of the front of the design. So I start out working, just trying to fill in with some greenery around the bottom, and to keep it even, I usually try to kind of match from side to side what I do. And if I put a piece in on the right side, then I try to put a piece in on the left side, and so forth. I'm not using any hot glue on these pieces. Now sometimes the stems would be, I don't have the stemming machine here at the house, so sometimes if the stems were a little soft and I had difficulty getting them in the styrofoam, I did use some hot glue. But for the most part, I didn't. All the supplies that I did use, except for the pumpkin, of course the pumpkin came from Walmart, or I believe Walmart, but all the greenery and the ribbon that I'm going to use came from a Trendy Tree. That is a bush cutter in the left of the video there, and I'm just going to speed this up because it took me about 45 minutes to make, and I'll just speed through this so you won't have to sit through it so long. But I just kind of work from side to side. Anything that I do on one side or the front or the back, I try to do similar, and just start filling in with some pieces. It looks kind of thin when you first get started. You think, oh, this is not going to look too good. But the more you keep adding pieces in, the fuller it gets. If this is the first time I've used a pumpkin like this, I've seen lots of other people do them, and I really wanted to try it. This is a pumpkin that I had used last year and that I had covered with styrofoam. Excuse me, I had covered with fabric. I have a tutorial for that, and I'll put that link in the blog post. I'll write a blog post about this, and I'll give you some suggested supplies that you might can find at Trendy Tree, or you may have enough to do a project like this in your stash. Sometimes you don't realize what you do have till you kind of pull it out and start looking at it. When I took all this out of my closet, I kind of separated it into the orange blooms, the yellow blooms, the greenery, and the bittersweet. I don't know what those little beaded, those yellow stems there, they were in some kind of a bouquet that I took apart, but I like the way they look. And that's just a little coral bloom of some sort, maybe more of a summer bloom, but it worked fine for this. Looks a little red there, but it's really kind of a pretty coral. You just keep working on it and just filling in, and sometimes I would, shorten the pieces as I went along. You can see it's beginning to fill in some. Now, you'll see at the end that I start covering the styrofoam with some green moss. I didn't have any gray Spanish moss, which, looks more like fall, but I did have some green. And I could have covered the styrofoam with that before I started, but I didn't. You can do it either way, whatever's easier for you. There's some of the bittersweet branches. I think that came off of a bittersweet bush. And you can see sometimes that happens, like a bloom came off the stem and I just hot glued it and put it back on the stem. Sometimes when I had difficulty getting the stem to go into the styrofoam, I just folded the end up about an inch so I had more to go down in the styrofoam. Just kind of added the bittersweet from side to side and front to back. I love bittersweet for fall arrangements. I usually use that on my back porch every year. And I did a lantern topper the other day, and it mostly had bittersweet in it. And I'll give you the link to that. There's the green wood wool or whatever you want to call it. It's green, and I just take a clump and put some hot glue on it, and then took like a craft stick to kind of help poke it in there to the styrofoam to try to keep from burning your hands, because when you're working with a hot glue gun, you will get burned. So I just kind of turn the pumpkin from side to side and kind of look at it. And, anytime I could see the styrofoam showing, then I just took a little clump of the wood wool and covered it up. So you just keep working around it and kind of look at it from all sides and make adjustments in it as you need to. And sometimes it helps if you, set it on another table and stand off and look at it, and you can see, maybe where you need to put in another twig or shorten something or lengthen it. It doesn't have to be perfect, flowers don't grow perfectly, so just arrange and work on it until you get it to where you like it. Okay, and there I kind of stopped and was going to make a bow. Now this ribbon, this is Trendy Tree, and it's a kind of a light teal and orange check, and then just some bright yellow. I don't really have any blue in the arrangement, but I like the pale orange and the cream that blends well with the other colors. So that's why I chose that ribbon. So I started out with about, making a tail. You don't need a big bow, so that's probably about a 6-inch tail. I really didn't measure. The loops are probably about 3.5 to 4 inches, and I just made 3 loops. Now that plaid ribbon is the same on both sides. You don't have to twist. It's a really nice ribbon. It's woven. Of course, this is 1.5 inch and it's wired. So I made 3 loops, all the same size. Getting the loops the same size is always the hardest part when you make a bow. And I don't know why I didn't just, drop it down on my mat there and measure it. It's got markings on it. But anyway, I didn't. And usually on my 1.5 inch ribbons, I just cut the tails off at an angle. You can dovetail them or not. Now, if that yellow ribbon is new and you saw that folded up end, you might as well cut that little end off because you're never going to get it to straighten back out. So I just started with the tail the same length and made a loop the same size as the plaid ribbon. I'm making 3 loops with that. That ribbon also is the same on both sides. It's just a bright, I'm not sure if it's called sunflower or it's a bright yellow. Of course, the ribbon came from Trendy Tree, and I'll give you links for that. I've had that yellow ribbon in my craft room, so I don't know if it's still available or not, but if not, there's probably some other ribbon. And you could use, some green, cream, or rust. You could even use some burgundy with that. Now, paddle wire, I could not find my green wire, so I just used the silver. But I cut a piece of the paddle wire, and I'm just going to wrap that around the bow, kind of where my thumb is holding, and bring that around to the back of the bow, and give it a couple of twists. And then hold on to the wire and twist the bow. It makes it a little bit easier. Also, I didn't have any floral picks to add this bow to, so I used a wooden skewer from the kitchen and just made me a floral pick. Of course, you could trim the tails on your bow after, you get it in there. Now that extra little piece of yellow ribbon, I was thinking I was going to need something to go across the center of the bow, but I didn't, so I didn't need that. So I took the skewer, I kept the sharp end, and cut it off to about 6 inches, and then I'm just taking the floral wire and wrapping around the skewer. And then we're just going to use that like a pick to go in the styrofoam. But I just wrapped all that wire around the pick. I'm sorry, I should have muted my computer. I keep hearing the dings. And just fluff out your bow. Of course, like I say, both of those are 1.5 inch ribbon or number 9s, and they're wired. And you just fluff that out and give your tails a little bit of, kind of run your fingers under the tails to give them just a little life that just curves them a little bit. And then stick it in the styrofoam. And you just have to kind of work on your placement. When I first put it in there, it was too high, and I had to take it back out. I know looking at this view kind of down on top of my craft table makes it a little bit hard to see the final project, but I videoed it. I put it in the living room, and then I took a little video of it, so you can see that in a minute. So see, I just pulled it out, and restack it a little bit lower. You really wouldn't even have to have a bow if you didn't want to. Of course, you'll always have to fluff your loops out again after you've worked on it and, you know, got it in position. Okay, and there it is in the living room. I like the way it turned out, and like I say, I didn't have many sunflowers, but that's okay. It's got lots of color. It's filled in with plenty of greenery. You can't see any of the styrofoam anywhere. You can hardly see the white pumpkin. But that's it. I like the way it turned out. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.